Good morning, everyone. I think we've done 33 kilometers. So it's, I think I'm 33, 42. So it's like, like 10, 12 to go. Next year, maybe a half marathon would be also sufficient, but let's move on. So thank you for inviting me. I'm going to present this project, Air Traffic Control Center, which actually started in 2006 and finished last year. So 7 years from the concept design to the construction finish. Why? And this is actually the most, I would put like a unpublic or non-public buildings we've ever designed. I would even say that, the private apartments are more public than this building. So why is that? Is that like a kind of like a military building? No, but it's on the edge of being a military building. It's actually a building with 5 levels of securities. Why is that? Because it's an air traffic control center. And there is only one building like that in each country. There are actually buildings, air traffic centers, the air traffic control centers in European countries which then connect to so-called Euro control. What it means, air traffic control centers, I will show you the client's video, which was filmed for the opening of the building. So actually, air traffic controllers in the towers, airport towers, are then connected to air traffic controllers on the ground. And when a plane takes off, it is controlled by the controls in the towers. And then when it reaches the cruising level, the controllers from the air traffic centers takes control until the plane actually starts landing. And then the controllers in the towers where the plane actually lands up on that airport takes the control over. So it's kind of pretty complicated, pretty complex. And this complexity very much influenced the design of the building. As I said, I would like to kind of introduce you the project with the client brief as presented by the client itself. And then I will go and show you how we actually respond to that. It's a 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes video.
Air traffic control is a service that controls, manages, and coordinates air traffic with an invisible hand, every day, in any weather conditions, all over the world. Air traffic controllers monitor and control the entire flight of an aircraft, from the moment the pilots start the engine until they turn them off again at their final destination. This is a responsible and demanding job, and since 2004 in Slovenia, it has been entrusted to the public utility Slovenian Air Navigation Services, which comprises 104 air traffic controllers monitoring up to 1,200 aircraft daily. This is a job where there is no room for mistakes and requires a high degree of concentration and employee skill. The headquarters of the public utility Slovenia Control was established in Ljubljana, where it remained until recently. There was also a center for management and air traffic control. It reached the upper limits of capacity already several years ago, in a small and dark basement with no natural light and with low ceilings, which promoted feelings of anxiety. The working conditions were far from optimal. The new building at Brnik will fully meet the prescribed standards and allow for the further development and expansion capacity of Slovenia's airspace. The new Air Traffic Control Center will provide a reliable and necessary infrastructure for the provision of air navigation services in the near and distant future. The new Air Traffic Control Center is designed to provide a high operational performance and ensure safety, quality, flexibility, and cost effectiveness for all users of Slovenia's airspace.
So this was the client's view. And basically, as I said before, we have, during these 7 years of sort of collaboration with them, established a very strong connection to kind of like really sort of understand the complexity of the job and really try to kind of respond to their sort of demands of working but also living. What I'm showing here is actually what it could be. So if we took a brief into, as was proposed to us in 2006, and then just responded. And the building, as presented in this short video, kind of was developed into kind of in a way that respond also to the ambition of the client. So what you see here, it's actually there are sort of like several examples of control centers all around the world, and there are very generic buildings, placed not necessarily at the airport, but kind of like in the proximity of the airports. And what is actually important is there are office buildings, kind of like as you see here, with this kind of large container. And this large container is actually the main space where air controllers actually work. This is the inside. I mean, it's a central space, really protected. I mean, the walls surround like a really thick walls. Usually, more or less, there is no light penetrating, and people, sort of controllers, work there. They have this shift. 2 hours working, 2 hours rest, 2 hours working, 2 hours rest. And as indicated in the video, it's a very, very focused, very kind of control work. So this is the building where the controllers in Slovenia were placed before. It's in the center of Ljubljana, in a courtyard of an, or let's say, residential area. Here, the box was not kind of placed above the ground, but it was below the ground. And the working conditions, were, as mentioned in the video, like a video full of anxiety, and they were like squeezed. The working places, the working condition was really, really not good. So we have to respond, with our design, we have to respond to two sort of parameters which could actually exclude each other. Very sort of like security, a high level of security of the building. As I mentioned before, there are 5 zones of security connected to well-being. So take into account, I can work very well if I can rest, if I have if I feel well, if I feel comfortable while working, but also I can work well, when I rest, I have like a really nice space, let's say comfortable space to kind of enjoy that particular moment. And of course, adaptability. The building could actually respond with rearrangement to a different sort of requirements, safety requirements, but also like number of flights which would actually fly over Slovenia. So where we started, what is the typology of this building? It's not, we didn't want to kind of get into, okay, it's a generic building with a container, but we sort of made a research of this kind of security, buildings which actually show and actually demonstrate a high level of security. So is it a bunker? So is it a bunker where natural light will penetrate in? Is it a bunker, is that a building a bunker where you would actually see in somehow, but the interior space, the interior atmosphere will give you like a sort of a feeling of comfort, will give you a feeling of simply saying well-being. And the third parameter was actually, when I'm inside of the building and when I rest, I want to see out. I want to have like a connection to the outside, because when I work, I really want to concentrate, and I have this kind of triple computer screens in front of me. So it's a connection between viewing out, being protected, being shielded, and feeling good while working and while resting. This is the plan of the building, and it's kind of funny, but when we start discussing, when we start developing, this kind of shape of an kind of kid's drawing of an airplane came to our mind. It's kind of like almost like a caricature of the security requirements itself. So what we have here, we have a pentagram, like a pentagram as a kind of like the most sort of safe part of the building. It's a core, it's a heart of the building, where the security level is number 5. So this is then surrounded by technical offices, which at the same time kind of provide a security wrap around the air control center. The 2 administrative wings are on the sort of western side, and in between it's so-called, as we call, like a vertical hall, like a public space with all the public common amenities, which actually bring these people, 160 people who work in that center together. I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna go like through the building step by step to make you understand the complexity of it. Where we started, I mean, we started with it's interesting to start with the working place itself. So it's really like a bottom-up strategy. This is a console where we design like adaptable working space for a controller, sort of where screens are implemented, computers are implemented, and lights, so that he or she can really have like a sort of focused working environment. And here you see like these 4 consoles placed together in the air traffic center, air traffic center itself. Pentagram, as I said, it's actually the meaning, it's the essence of the building. Everything else is just because of these 20 controllers who actually work there. Going back to what you saw before. So our first intention was, okay, if you work there, I mean, this building is 24/7, and you need to kind of get connected. You need to get connected towards the outside. So this sort of balance between indoor, protected indoor, and kind of like outdoor, which is around, was really important for us. This slide shows, how the daylight was actually brought to the building, like northern light, diffuse light, which penetrate to the building. Under the floor, it's a deep service area. And I'm actually emphasizing this, because this is actually one of the building, or actually the most, I mean, we've never dealt with that kind of buildings before, where services would become a really part of space, not just of architecture, but space. Services, which is not just something which is added, but it's kind of like a logistic. It's kind of contribute to the logistic of the building. So the walls of the pentagram as well, like they hide services behind, in order to provide like a very sort of like I would call it like a sealed environment. When you go there, there is no sound. There is kind of like a unique light, like very sort of controlled light in a super controlled environment where these people actually work. And as this image show, I mean, they work behind their desks or in front of the computer or their working position. And this guy in the middle actually have an overview to the other controllers. It's really like a kind of really a very hierarchical, very controlled environment. So if we move below, we're now kind of under that center, the radar center, the control center. I mean, as you see here in this section, there is a big space underneath. And this big space, it's a service space. Service space where all the computers, where all the electronic, digital, and service stuff is placed. And since it's a building of a high level of security, you see also, that you have generators duplicated. So if in case of emergency, if something is broken, the other part can actually take over. I'm emphasizing this, because the building, actually what you see, it's one part. The other part is hidden. It's below the ground, and it actually enables that the building could actually work. I mean, usually actually architects forget about, forget or not forget, but these kind of spaces are never part of kind of like spatial thinking. And here we find it almost like fascinating, almost like in a Kubrick movies, to design this sort of like a big walkable kinet, where you walk around these corridors and get like the all kind of like repairs, possible changes, This is a kind of under space, like a belly of the building. Second part, we are now in the security zone numbers 4, it's on the left-hand side. Number 3 is on the right-hand side, the offices. The offices, the technical offices and administration offices are part of the building. 130 people work there. And we find like interesting, how the level of privacy was actually introduced to that space. First, we propose like really open, glazed, but open, like transparent spaces where you would actually see inside of the offices. The answer of the client was no. We are controllers, we want to be like separated. We want to be, when we work, also when we work in the offices, we don't want to be confronted with what's going on outside of our working space. So that's why we actually provided these meeting areas on the levels where people can actually, when they have like a break, they go, they step out and they sort of interact in that areas. It's really interesting because it's an office building, but because it's in the air traffic center, also the way how, the accountants or secretary works is influenced by that. We move to the living rooms. Actually, on each level, there is a living room for the controllers. When they have this 2 hours break, they go out and they actually relax on different spaces. They're very kind of informal spaces. They can even take a rest or nap or sleep, short sleep, in the really ascetic bedrooms provided on the second floor. Take into account that they live there. It's a working environment, but it's also a living environment. So this sort of, as I mentioned like many times, bringing together like a high level of security with high level of well-being was really important for the project. In the center part, it's a security level 1 and 2. There are zones of interaction. There are zones of meetings. There are zones of, where you go, have a break, take a coffee, take a, sandwich or a meal. You can work out in the fitness. You can actually play in the area or have a really smoke on the, cigarette on the balcony. So it's again like places, where you would not actually show in a kind of like normal office building, but here they become like a part of the main space of the building. Main spaces surrounded or kind of around this vertical hall, You would ask, why we actually put so much emphasis into that? Why to actually create like a space which is more than expected? And again, the answer would be, if you stay there and if you work there, if you stay there like 24 hours, if you work there like 7 days per week, why don't take space as kind of, or spatial environment as something which would actually provide a benefit, which will actually sort of influence or affect your working environment, your living environment, your actually your behavior and your comfort. So this space of the central vertical hall, as we call it, it's a main circulation area of the building. So where you hear all these people from different security level zones actually meet. And of course, it's lit from above. I mean, you have like this direct light which penetrates into the building. So if we started from the console, from the design of the working place, this is actually the interior space which then, like almost like as a vortex, then extends to the facade. So what is the facade, or actually what is the exterior? The exterior is actually made of series of bands, like horizontal bands, which sort of connect the parapet and brise-soleil. So here again, I mean, as these two models, actually two photos of the model shows, the facade or the bands itself respond to internal parameters of like program and specific sort of like requirements of the interior, as well as to the external parameters as orientation, sun shading, etc., etc. So what you see here, it's it's a detail of the parapet brise-soleil. It's a steel structure cladded in aluminum, providing also like almost like a Faraday cage of protection between interior and exterior. So what it seems as kind of like really, I would say, formal exercise, it has almost like a mathematical logic. So you wrap around and then present like a very different, I mean, the wrapping itself becomes like a system reacting to different conditions between indoor and outdoor environment. Like with a sort of angles of and length of the brise-soleil. Here, for example, you have a meeting space behind. The offices where you need a parapet, you go up, and so on and so on. So the building actually wraps around, I mean, the bands wraps around the building and respond to these different conditions. So the last part is actually how to kind of not contextualize, how to actually react to the different environment around the building. So it's not in the city, it's actually in a very beautiful spot at the end at the airport, surrounded by the woods, and this kind of connection between reflected glass as something which would provide additional protection for the working space, as well as the reflection of the surrounding was part of the concept. So in a way, you go around the building and you see in the reflection, you see what you actually see from the view from the outside, view from the inside. And this in a way provides also the level of identification. You view the mountains from the inside and you see the reflection of the mountains where you actually drive and come to the to your work when you leave the car and then you enter the building. So what is the building? I mean, when you see the building at the end, at the edge of the airport, what is it? How it actually sort of affects you? Is that like something which is mysterious, which is something like which is, you know, saying, okay, do not approach me? Is something which you say, okay, I'm not like the one who I work there? Does it kind of trigger your kind of imagination? Yeah, I mean, it's there are all these answers are actually possible. I would just kind of finish this short presentation saying, you know, that this slot here, the black slot actually presents like the opening of the garage. So in the garage, you get a natural light coming in, and it actually enables like a natural ventilation of the garage. Thank you.